Hi, Joy Bassett here. There's one question on the lips of many people at the moment, and that's about how to vote. Should they do a tactical vote? I hope you'll bear with me because this is a really big issue for most of you, and it's going to take about 5 minutes to talk about it. I know the Lib Dems are really keen that our members and supporters buy into the tactical vote argument and get them to vote for them out of fear of keeping Scott Mann in power. They seem to be targeting Labour members and supporters who they know are politically smart and are prepared to unseat Scott Mann at any cost. Well, first of all, it didn't work last time. Our combined votes would not have stopped Scott Mann. The Lib Dems have not been winning here in North Cornwall since 2015, but they still keep pushing the same old narrative. The only way to get Scott Mann out or to kick the Tories out is to vote tactically. The only thing that tactic has achieved since 2015 is to keep the Lib Dems' vote share alive, whilst preventing us from increasing our vote share in the meantime. We need a different strategy. Labour has an enormous task ahead to restore and rebuild all that the Tories have destroyed. That is why Labour's manifesto commitment is huge. That is why this election is so important. The only possible hope we have to turn things around is to get a Labour government into power, and we need every Labour marginal seat in the country to win to be able to do that. In Cornwall we have two, Truro and Falmouth, and Camborne, Redruth and Hale. Plus we had St Austell and Newquay and South East Cornwall coming second place last time. St Ives and us here in North Cornwall, well, we came last. But you know what? Tactical voting works well for the Lib Dems because it keeps them in second place. My argument is that if Labour wins nationally and we have a Labour government in power and Scott Mann wins North Cornwall, what is it going to matter? What is he going to do as a Tory MP under a Labour government? The Liberal Democrat Party is the latest in a line going back over 100 years of parties who have no prospect of power or influence, but rely only on false claims that voting for them is the only way to stop something. My view is that history is against them and the others who stake their claim to the middle ground. They have had a historical strength in the West Country and in the Highlands of Scotland. Under leaders like Charles Kennedy and Paddy Ashdown, they had progressive policies. But since then, they have been a pale imitation of the Tories. They seek office to water down the strength of any party in government. Now, that may be an aim or an ambition shared by others, but it has never been the aim or an ambition of the Labour Party. My vision is that Labour seeks and has always sought power, not office, and that is power to change the lives of the ordinary people for the better. The Lib Dems don't have the numbers to be anything other than a coalition partner. They said that they are not going to help us form a government, so the likelihood is that if Boris Johnson's Tories do not get a majority, it is the Lib Dems that will once again work in coalition with them. In fact, their deputy leader has already said that that would be the case. So thinking of the bigger picture, and because this election is our last chance to tackle the climate and environmental emergency, and a once-in-a-generation chance to transform our country, take on the vested interests and ensure that no community is left behind, this election has to be all or nothing. We want to avoid a hung parliament, so that means as many seats as possible turning red. No tactical voting, unless of course it's for a Labour vote. No vote swaps, that relies on trust. But with hand on your heart, vote for the change you know we need for it to become a reality. Labour has an army of volunteers. We don't have the money like the Brexit Party and the Tories, but we do have a mobilised army of thousands of volunteers out on the streets, knocking on doors up and down the country, changing people's minds and getting the vote for Labour. North Cornwall is a target seat for the Lib Dems. That is why they are trying so hard to win it. That is their agenda. That is why we need to change the narrative from get the Tories out to get Labour in. There is only one response to get Labour in, and that is to vote Labour. On the doorstep, when talking to Joe Public, the Lib Dems, I found, are very unpopular. They do not like Joe Swinson. They do not agree with their anti-democratic attitude to Brexit of revoking Article 50 without a further referendum. And they haven't forgotten the part that they've played in bringing in austerity during their time in coalition. They get more support from Labour members and supporters who want to remain than from Joe Public. But it's interesting. Here in North Cornwall, 60% of the people voted to leave, and that is why they won't be voting for the Lib Dems. And I've also met some traditional Tory voters on the doorstep who are very concerned about their Prime Minister and the NHS and are beginning to think about voting for Labour. Yes, they are. There might just be a few of them at the moment, but they are Tory voters who will not vote for the Lib Dems. And yes, they are negative about Jeremy Corbyn, but they see Labour as the only way of preventing Brexit. These are my reasons why I will not bow down to the pressures from the Lib Dems and Labour Remainers who have constantly challenged me to stand aside. The Labour Party can only change its economic path, which has seen our country decline by being in power, and that power comes from the ballot box where you put your X on the piece of paper. I know it's flawed and fragile, but it's the only process we have. So remember, on the 12th of December, vote Labour. Vote for me, vote for Joy, so that we can have that real hope and change that we so desperately need. Thank you.